I would be investing in music as opposed to pure art, as opposed to gaming. But I think it's a very underinvested space. A lot of people have been put off because they think music rights are complicated. But there's still amazing things to do with music artists to kind of build these new businesses. And if I put a gun to your head and said name 10 modern digital artists, you might die, right? But if I said name 10 music artists, everyone would live. My name is Jon Vlassopulos. I'm the CEO of Napster. Originally, there was the Napster file sharing that I was involved with when I was at Bertelsmann 20 years ago. So we lent Napster 50 million. We nearly brought the service to legitimacy back then, but had a user base of 60, 70 million. And then the Napster brand got put on top of Rhapsody, which was one of the first streaming services. So we've been running as a competitor to Spotify over the last 15, 20 years. So it's been around. It still has millions of users on the platform. I think the interest and the investors who came in to Hive-Mind and Algorand, Skybridge, etc., G20, is to take what is a very kind of compelling independent music service where it's not public, which has a great brand, has a great loyal user base, and then to take a lot of the great ideas and features and technology that have been tested in Web3 with kind of projects around the world and bring that all to bear to create an example of what a Web3 music service could be. And I think the feeling is that gaming and Web3 has taken, like last year, 4 billion. This year is predicted to be 10 billion, whereas music, Web3 last year was only 300 million. So it feels like the space has been under-invested in. So we're doing a little round now that we're closing. We're announcing a venture fund. So we're going to be investing in Web3 music companies, acquiring some companies. We're starting a Web3 artist fund to try and get some momentum in the space, and then we'll do a bigger round probably in 2023 to spearhead this whole new market. So I think if we strip away the jargon, right, music is really about passion. Everyone talks about 1,000 fans. The music industry, we think, is perfectly positioned to capture that notion of Web3. We have millions of artists with thousands of fans. And instead of thinking about NFTs in the word, think about communities, fan clubs, relationships between artists and fans, fandom. So the plan will be, as opposed to creating something in Web3 music that's sort of brand new, that doesn't have streaming or around ticketing. So this already has all the rights for streaming all the music that you love and know with the millions of bands and artists around the world. So we're going to be bringing in the ability for these fans to get access to the new NFT clubs, if you like, of the artists, to have a different ownership model for Napster overall, and then within the artistic community, hopefully to have the Napster coin as it launches next year to be that currency that people can kind of interact with within the music community. Yeah, so I think in the music space, specifically that there aren't actually many, even quote unquote, by the way, we never used Web 2 before Web 3 came along. So anyway, let's say traditional businesses, there've been communities over the years, but there haven't been now like very many communities around music. So a lot of streaming has been very solitary. So the experience is you go on your own to a streaming service like Napster, you decide what you want to listen to, you go jogging or running or listen to it at home. So it hasn't been communal, so there haven't been a lot of communities. So we even think in terms of, again, traditional Web 2 businesses, that's been missing with streaming. So we'll bring that to bear. And then I think the notion of connecting and blockchain contracts, I've dealt in music for 25 years. It's very complicated. So the back end of the music system or industry with rights and how they're all transferred, we think can be improved dramatically with the notion of contracts. And then we think the notion of a direct relationship between fans with an aggregator, we think discovery is one of the biggest problems in Web3. You have whatever project is, it's hard to find. So we're going to bring everyone together within an ecosystem and help, again, artists have these direct relationships with their fans, but the fans can also still stream the music in a traditional way. So think of it as a hybrid, 2.5. We think full 3 is difficult, full 2 is difficult, so we want to be that kind of bridge to get people into the new world. So I think in terms of what artists can do or what people in the community can do, number one, we're trying to champion Web3 music separate to like Web3 gaming to bring more attention to the space and hopefully more investment. Some will flow through us, but some we want to flow directly to the companies in the space. So whatever your project is, hopefully it can get more awareness and funding and be more competitive, because we actually think music is more, at least as likely, if not more likely, to deliver a utility-based consumer service faster than gaming, considering how music is set up with discovery of artists and bands. That whole process is very tied to reward-based. If you do something great or discover something, where gaming is more just gaming. So number one, we're trying to bring more attention to the space. Number two, in terms of the investment in the community, I think a lot of the other companies are public, right? So the Spotify, either part of a conglomerate or Spotify is public and has shareholder returns. So that's why they're deviating from being around music to more being audio commodity services, we like to call them. So they're going into audiobooks and podcasting. So it doesn't necessarily help the artists. They're kind of going into audio because they've got to get better returns and better margins. So even Deezer went public recently in Europe. So we feel we're sort of uniquely positioned where we have one of the most iconic brands in music with Napster, which we're going to revive again for the younger generation, but 30 to 55 is still dominant. Everyone knows the brands. I get heckled in New York when I'm walking down the streets with the t-shirt, or taxi drivers like, whoa, I remember Napster, man. So number one, and two, because we're independent, we have these great deep-pocketed new investors. We're looking to make a real push to give the whole market. I feel Web3 overall needs a consumer success. There's been a lot of collectibles, which is fine, which is trading, but we want to actually show how this can be a service that people can use and have utility with on a daily basis. Music is so rife, I think, so generally an artist is a very creative person, and obviously now people think of an artist just as someone who writes songs and puts out a 3-minute song or a 4-minute song, but they're much more than that. And I think that fandom, I went to see The Script last night here in Singapore at the stadium. You had 7,000 crazy ravenous fans who knew every word of the song and shouting and screaming. Right. They want more from that relationship with their artist than just listening to their music on a Napster or whatever. So we feel there's ownership of visual items, that they're releasing, the old days of like collectible vinyl where things would be unique. We think there's access, which is sort of that club thing we used to do at Roblox when I worked there, meet and greets, anything that you can get closer to the fan and the artist. And then in terms of the music rights, there are a lot of artists who are on label deals and then they're off label deals and come independent or go through different cycles. So we think already music is complicated now, but we can do a better version of that where artists can have a relationship directly with their fans. Perhaps if you think of the remix culture, other people who are dropping in beats to go with the song, that can all be managed more fluidly than having the current rights back-end structure of the current music industry. So again, it's taking the best of now, where I want to go in there and put in Chili Peppers or put in, Taylor Swift or whoever I happen to listen to, but also having all those artists have a discovery mechanism where there's a community where people are chatting, talking. It's a social community. They're sharing new artists that they're loving, and some are on top. So there's the streaming revenue traditionally, but there's on top money that the artists are able to make, and it's all within one ecosystem. So the technology's there and the tools are there for the industry, but there's one aggregating brand, which we think is important as opposed to a project that's launched with 1,000 people over here and another 1,000 people over here. It gets too complicated. Yeah, so number one, I think it feels like Web3 Music is where we were maybe 3 years ago in Metaverse music. And I think in terms of leveraging the playbook that I had from Roblox to the space, in 2019, no one really talked about music in the Metaverse. It was brand new. The artists didn't know what it was, labels didn't know what it was, there were no deal structures, there were no production companies to build it, right? There was no ecosystem. Now it's a fluid ecosystem, and the VMAs with MTV recognize a virtual music concert category. So I think it's become mainstream over the last 3 years. So one is taking that playbook, where right now in Web3 music we're having conversations. What does it mean? What's the ecosystem? How do people make money? But we created a lot of examples month by month to show the industry, this is how it works, and they got bigger. So I think the playbook is definitely applicable. And then, I think Web3 and Metaverse are often conflated. So I think no reason that we couldn't build Napster lands, virtual worlds where artists and fans could connect, have experience doing that. But we'll be rolling out announcements coming through the end of this year and next year. But we don't see them as separate. We just say new ways for artists and fans to engage, which could be in a 3D virtual world. It could be within a music service community with chat and tokens. So they'll all coming together. It's just a new way for artists and fans to connect and to amplify fandom, hopefully creating new commercial and creative opportunities for the artists. Yeah, so I think it's again that notion. So with KSI and Zara Larsson, Lil Nas X, we help them create millions of dollars. I mean, those are bigger artists, but the same would apply for a smaller artist. in money that was non-music revenue money, tied around virtual goods and items that weren't NFTs per se, but they're kind of like NFTs because they were in a Roblox ecosystem. So I think the notion of artists seeing themselves as singularly, music producing machines, I think can change. So I think there's a way. I love a band called Saturday Night Dynamite. I would have everything. If they did a little video, if they did artistic drops, if they like anything connected to the band, that's my fandom, not just the music. I would love a little shout out, if you think of Cameo and other things that have come. So anything around that fandom and the passion that you have in the music space, I think the artist is now thinking about themselves more broadly. Yeah. So we work with 21 Pilots, the band, and I feel genuinely, Josh and the guys, that they're going to make movies, they're going to make TV shows. Coldplay guy, Chris wants to do a movie after he finishes touring. So I think the notion of restricting these music artists as just people who put out 3-minute songs is changing. So advice to independent artists is wherever you can express yourself, even if it's not just your music, there are, you can create different avatars and different worlds and experiment. Come and talk to us at Napster. We definitely have some ideas and can maybe collaborate. But yeah, so it was, number one, I think see yourself as more than just a music making artist. Find your fans and experiment on platforms where you might not think about going, a lot of the new Metaverse platforms. And then, by all means, chat to us and, we'll be able to share some of the ideas that we're working with. And we have this artist development fund for Web3 artists to support this and to help them on the new journey. If you think about Bjork as an artist, she's such a three-dimensional artiste, right, in terms of her work and the way she pushes the limits of creativity. The way Bowie did in his heyday, even Radiohead and some new bands. So I think artists are all in the DJ culture, everyone's trying to push what art means. And a lot of it is experiential and it's art and it's expression and so they're generally as an artist trying to get their word. Fame is not, there's a recent survey by Media, like a big music research, fame is not the number one thing that artists want. They want to express themselves to their community and they want to kind of have recognition amongst their peers. So yeah, I think you can survive as music alone, but the point is a lot of artists are also expressive. They do their own artwork and they have visual ideas that they've been restricted. So you can be more than just music. And I think as a fan, I'm interested in anything, unlike an actor in a TV show or a movie, that I know they're playing a role. But when I'm connecting with my artist, I know that they're the artist 365, 24/7. Yeah. So I'm interested in what they have to say about other things. I'm interested in what they're doing, what products they're associated with, what they think about which other artists they like or whatever. So I think building a personal brand, you can now have that relationship with your fans that you can kind of monetize if you want in different ways, but then they can also see your live music. But the live music shows, we went to 21 Pilots recently in Nashville. That show was my son's first show at 10, and he was just transfixed the whole time because it was this multimedia. There were things going on. They were dressing up in characters, and they were going through the screen, and there was visuals, and he was coming across. So it's becoming much more theatrical.
It's an experience.
Yeah. So and that's what the Metaverse provided. We could allow people to run around in the mind of the artist, which I think is just much more fun for the fan, but also much more fun for the artist. Yes. So two things. I think if you look at the 35 billion or so that's been spent on that, let's call it crawl, walk, run, just the simple NFT acquisitions with an ARPU of $700-800. A very small part of that has been music. It's mainly been sports and art. And if I put a gun to your head and said name 10 modern digital artists, you might die, right? But if I said name 10 music artists, everyone would live. So I think that, again, with that disparity of investment, 300 million versus 4 billion last year, if I was an investor, which I am as well, I would be investing in music as opposed to pure art, as opposed to gaming. Not disproportionately. I think even if it becomes equal, that's good. But I think it's a very underinvested space. A lot of people have been put off because they think music rights are complicated. But there's still amazing things to do with artists, music artists, to kind of build these new businesses and show Web3 and even the DeFi community. So a lot of our investors are using music as a way to have consumer retail investor uptake, which in turn will drive the physical markets and DeFi, which is what they're doing in their other businesses. So yeah, I would say look at music as an underinvested segment, and we'd be happy to chat. We don't see there's any reason that we can't be now we're a hundreds of $1 million business. I mean, there's no reason we think we can't be multi-billion-dollar business in the pretty short term. So yeah, I mean, you can't put a cap on passion and fandom. And I think if you look at the creator economy, that is the economy that we're moving into. So to be able to harness that and evolve what has been traditionally a fairly linear commodity-based experience around music and really tap that fandom, we kind of think the sky is the limit. So we can't say too much yet around the Napster token, but we're backed by Algorand. So we're now in the process of setting up our foundation for Napster. So if there are any of your audience who are interested, we're looking for a foundation head. So expect things to be rolled out in 2023. I think, again, in general, if you think about the fluidity of the music discovery experience, it lends itself very well to a token that has utility. For example, if you are a super fan, you can be rewarded if you create amazing playlists. You can be rewarded if you're early users. So if you want to find a band and then they become successful, you can kind of stay with the band and be a partner. So I think it's very organic to the music ecosystem to have a token, and we would like that token to have utility across the whole music ecosystem, even beyond Napster. So more on that to come when we get closer. So Lars used to live near me in San Francisco. Lars is a great guy, and we're actually looking to do some Napster kitty drops for NFTs, and we thought it would be fun to do a kitty with some Lars drumsticks as a nod to the old days. So no, the old school music service that's been around for 20 years, originally of file sharing fame, and now we've just taken a new investment round from a bunch of great Web3 investors. So we're going to be bridging what was the kind of Napster 2.0 service with music streaming into a full Web3 music service.